Hey everybody, welcome to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And in this time out, we're going to take a look at a new series of plugins by Solid State Logic, the official SSL plugins from Solid State Logic. This time we're going to take a look at the drum strip plugin here. We're going to go through it. I'm going to listen to it on a drum bus. We're going to listen to it on some kick drums. I'm going to show you what it can do. And we're going to get a feel for how these Solid State Logic official plugins from the SSL company themselves, how they sound. So before we get to that, if you like what you see in this video, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Also go out to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and get your 5 free mixing training courses. It's my gift to you for just visiting HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. And finally, if you want to learn the craft of mixing and you're someone who's a beginner or intermediate at mixing your own music in your home studio, head on over to mixingmadeeasy.net and check out what I have going on over there. You'll really enjoy that, I promise you. So now let's head on into Studio One and let's take a look. So I recently was turned on to the Solid State Logic plugins by an actual member of mine over at mixingmadeeasy.net, a student, and he said he had picked these up, and he said these sound really great. They sound better than the Waves emulations and the Universal Audio emulations and some of maybe the Slate emulations. And I said, well, I didn't know much about it. I did not know that Solid State Logic actually had a set of native plugins. So I went over and checked it out. And what you can do is you can go to their website, just do a Google search for Solid State Logic or SSL plugins. Their website will come up in the first couple of entries there. You can either buy the plugins outright, which are pretty expensive. Each one of these plugins is about a couple of $100 US, or you can get all, I think it's 6 or 8 plugins for a monthly or yearly subscription. The least expensive subscription price at the recording of this video is $149 US for 12 months, and that gives you access to all their plugins, all free updates that come along with it over the course of time there. So that's a really good deal. So I signed up for a year and I wanted to check them out. And so here is the drum strip, and we'll take a look at some of the other plugins in future videos. But I wanted to do this because I've recently done some videos on some drum enhancing type plugins by Audified and a couple of others. You can check those out in my archive in the plugin review playlist on my YouTube channel. You'll see some of the other ones. And I wanted to check out this one. So here it is in front of us here. Let's take a walk through it. I'll show you the layout. It's really kind of simple to use, and then we'll listen to it on a couple of different sources, and then we'll end this video. So here it is. Here's the GUI for the SSL Oxford, England SSL native drum strip. So the way this is laid out is here on the left-hand side, we have an input gain meter with an input gain attenuator, plus or minus 20 dB. Next to that, we have our gate section up here in the kind of the top left to the center part of the plugin. Again, everything is very well laid out, nice, big, easy to see. You can see all the writing around the knobs, really nice. We have an open and close feature for the gate, a range here, a hold feature, attack and release, and then you can turn the module on and off by just clicking that button here. And at the same time, you can also see along the bottom the order of the modules here, and we'll talk about that in a second. So as I turn off the gate, you'll see the gate module down here goes off, and if I click it on, here it is. Over here to the bottom left, underneath the gain and the gate meter here, the gate meter, we have the low frequency enhancer. This is pretty cool. So you can dial in a specific frequency from 20 hertz to 250 hertz. You can adjust the drive and then the amount of how much of the low frequency you want to hear, how much more enhancement you want to have, and you turn that on and off here. And you can see again in the bottom it clicking on and off down here. Next to that, we have the high frequency enhancer, just like the low, but from this time we go from 2K to 20K. Again, we can have a drive knob here, and then we have the amount, percentage amount, and then we have a module that turns on and off right here. Next to that, we have our Listen Mic Compressor. So now this is a little bit different than a typical compressor that you would typically put on, say, a drum bus. This is more of a kind of a simplified kind of a compressor that I guess was introduced in the 4000 series analog consoles, and you can read all about it in the PDF manual, which is nicely laid out as well. So here we could turn this on and off here. It's the last part of the signal flow. We have a compression amount, how much compression amount you want, the makeup gain, and then you have a wet dry mix here as well. And all of the, they say in the manual, it's a very fast attack and a fast release. So we'll see as we turn this up very slightly, you'll really hear the compression. Now there's no gain reduction meter here on the plugin. You got to kind of use your ears. So this is something where if you're just looking for a little bit of compression, or if you're doing something maybe where you want a little bit of distortion or whatever, you could go ahead and dial this in, and we'll play with this a little bit. And you turn this on and off here, and then you can also engage a narrow band right here by doing this. You can listen to the narrow band here. Okay. And again, on the right-hand side here as our output, we have a dry-wet mix knob of how much of the plugin we want to have as opposed to the dry signal. And then we have an output gain plus or minus 20 dB here and an output meter. So that's kind of the layout. Now again, along the bottom, we have the modules here in the way the signal flows. So as the signal comes into the plugin, it goes through the gate, through the transient shaper here, right, which is kind of here, which is excuse me, we didn't talk about the transient shaper, sorry. We'll talk about that in a second. It goes from the transient shaper, we'll move the gate back here. You could click on these little arrows and you can change the order in which the signal flows. We're gonna go to the gate to the transient shaper, and that is up here. So this is kind of and this is really handy actually, and we'll listen to this in a second. We turn it on and off here, where we could go ahead and we can really get back when you dial in some compression, you'll tend to lose the transient, a little bit of the punch. And this is gonna kind of bring that back for us a little bit by giving us a little bit more punch on the kick and on the snare and even on the toms. And again, we have a speed knob and a mount, a gain, how much we want. We can listen to it, we can invert it, and we can turn it on and off right here. So we'll listen to that. So again, along the bottom, it goes to the transient shaper, then to the high end frequency, then to the low end frequency, and then out to the compressor. Okay. Now again, by clicking the arrows here, you can change the signal flow. As you saw, now I'm going from the transient shaper to the low to the high. Okay. You could do all of that right here. You can put the compressor anywhere you want in the chain, so on and so forth. They also have a bunch of presets here. Now, this is the default preset that we're on, but you can save your own presets here. If you find something you really like, you can save it and name it and call it your own. And they also have a bunch of presets here as well, a bunch of producer presets by Clint Murphy, by Dan Austin. And just a whole bunch of really cool presets here we could try. And we have some standard ones for kick, for overhead, snare, toms, so on and so forth. So not only can you do this on a bus, you could put these on individual tracks as well, which we'll check out in a second. We're going to go right back to the default preset here, and that's going to bring us into where our how our signal flow kind of happens here. Okay, so we can turn that on and off, and then we can do that, and that's how we're going to start. So right now, let me close this for 1 second. We're just soloed up some drums here, just a well-recorded drum track with no plugins on the drums at all. And on the drum bus, we have a copy of the drum strip here. So right now we're in bypass mode. When I engage this here, you'll see that it'll turn on automatically here. We'll shut off the gate for the drum bus here. And what we're going to do is we'll start with it off. I'll play back part of this music, this drum loop, and then we'll go ahead and we'll just turn it on. I just threw up the fader static mix, and you can hear what it does. And then we'll talk about what we're doing, and we'll twist the little knobbies in each part of the plugin here. So here we go. Before. After. Okay, so that's what just me turning this on and just kind of dialing it in quickly. So let's look at the different sections here. So let's just start. We'll turn off the high frequency enhancer. We'll turn off the transient shaper and the compressor and the gates off. And let's just deal with we'll start with the transient. Oh, let's go back. I keep switching the order of this by mistake, and I don't want to do that here. So we're going to not deal with the gate in this particular example. We'll look at that on the kick drums. Let's go over to the transient shaper, which is where the first part of the signal is going to flow after the gate. So let's turn on the transient shaper and let's listen to what that does. So here we go. So we'll the amount all the way down. You can really hear it on the snare. If we adjust the speed, a little less audible. The gain. how much we want to hear the actual transient. So this would be at 0 dB at unity. That's before. So if you were compressing the individual drums, which we're not doing here, but typically you might be doing some compression and some EQ on the kick and the snares and the toms individually. And then when you get down to the bus, if you lose a little bit of that punch, a little bit of that transient, you can use the transient shaper here to bring back some of those transients on your drum bus, which works really well. Okay, now from there we could go over to the low frequency enhancer and let's check out what that does. So we'll take out the transient shaper for a second. We'll bring in the low frequency enhancer and let's just hear what that does. So we're going to pick around 60 hertz kick drum, right? The amount. You can really hear it there. So not only do you hear it in the kick, but in the low toms. And you can hear as I crank that up, it'll start to peak the output, so we would typically turn that down. That's with no enhancer. We have a drive knob here. Really sounds nice, especially on these nice tom fills. Really, really nice. Really enhances that kick drum. And even when you turn the drive all the way up, it doesn't really distort. It still sounds kind of punchy. Now, again, this is an acoustic drum kit that was recorded really well. These are well-recorded tracks, so keep that in mind. But that's at 60.8 hertz, almost 61 hertz. That really does a nice job with the low end of your drum kit. So now let's also check out then the high frequency enhancer. Let's see what this does. Same kind of concept, but for the high end. So maybe you want a little more crack out of the snare. So maybe we'll turn this up a little and sweep around. Not there. Maybe around 38, 4K, right? You can turn that back a little bit. A little bit of drive. So not only makes the snare cut, but it also makes the toms cut too, which is really, really nice. You really get some nice stick attack out of that. So what I would tend to do with this is I dial up the amount and I'm exaggerating it a little bit so you can hear it, and then dial it back. You know, where you think you got it just right, you probably have a little too much. Dial it back maybe 10 or 15% to you want to overdo it. You don't want it to sound overly processed. But again, really, really nice. Now if I do the low end and the high end together and just take those away, here's what just the low end and the high end will do. And I'll bypass the plugin just by turning this on and off. So here's with it in. Maybe a little too much on the high end. Now let's put the transient shaper back in. It really brings out the crack of that snare. Before, after. So you can see very quickly, and again, you would typically do this maybe in the context of the mix with the whole band kind of playing this, you know, towards the end. We just got to dial things in. So you just can't get the snare to poke through. The transient shaper, a little bit of transient shaper, all of a sudden it cuts through the mix. Sounds really, really, really good. Sounds really good. Okay, and now lastly we have the Listen Mic Compressor. Now again, as I said, this is more of a simplified kind of a compressor. And you can read all about it in the manual. But let's just turn that on and see what it does. And that's the last place that this signal hits before it goes to the output section of the plugin. And again, you can rearrange that, but let's turn this on. Okay, we have no compression right now. We're doing 100% wet. Let's just turn it up a little bit. Okay, you can really hear what it's doing. Obviously, that's too much. No compression. Compressed. Okay, now again, it has a very fast attack and a fast release built in. This would be really good for parallel compression on drums, like a crush track. This might be a way to do that. And you can use kind of built in, you can use the wet dry mix to kind of, you can crank up the compression a little bit, and then you can dial back the wet dry mix. You can get that nice balance as opposed to having a dry track and a parallel track like I would normally do, and then blend the two faders together. You could do it all inside the plugin. So let's try that. So we'll crank up the compression a little bit, and then we'll dial back the wet dry. Let's see what it does. Okay. Before. Hear how it cuts the snare, cuts a little more? Give it a little more. Okay, so this is a nice way to do some nice parallel compression. So that's great too. Or if you just want the fully compressed, you can just put it on 100% wet, and then you can just dial this down a little bit like so. Here's no compression. Here, like 8, 9, 10%. A little much. I think you could even dial this back a little. Okay, so that's what you can do with right on the drum bus. So very, very quickly, again, we start from the very beginning with no processing. Here's what the drums sound like. Thing you can do, you can dial back the output a little bit just to make up, to level match the plugin. Very, very nice. Okay, so now we're going to bypass this for a second here, and I just want to show you the gate on like 2 kick drums, which is really nice. Now, I'm not a big fan of gates, admittedly, and I'm going to be interested to see how this gate kind of works. So what I did is I took our kick in and our kick out mic, and I put it over to a bus, okay, and I put an instance of this on that bus, and right now it's in bypass mode. So let's just listen to the kick drums. We'll mute everything else. So here's our kick drums with the plugin in bypass. And basically what I did is I came down to our presets and I picked kick in tight, or you could do kick in boomy. We'll switch between the two, and it automatically enables the gate. So let's see what happens when we turn it on. How well does the gate work? So you can see the gate and how much it's when it's closing and how much it is. Let it loop around here. Go ahead and turn up your monitors. I'll pull this up a little bit so you can hear it more. Not bad. Here's before. Really effective. Turn on. Okay, let's go to the other boomy kick in. Okay, much different there, yeah? So we can go ahead and we can we can pull back. Not so much the range here. Play with the open and close here. How much it holds. Oh, the range, we gotta dial that back. And you can see it over here. I just noticed here the open and close are here in this little meter here. So here's, you can see it up here. As I'm moving the open and close, see the little thing up here? Coming back and forth, and you can use the meter, the input here, to kind of set the range here, when you want it to open, when you want it to close. So there's our, kind of our close. And then how much. And the more you tweak the range, the more you can adjust. And then how quickly does it happen? So the range really is what. Okay, so you can mess around with the gate all you want. I much like it, and again, I'm not a huge fan of gates. Tight in seems to work really well. You can see how it's set. The close and the open is set compared to the range. So that's one way you can go ahead and you can get rid of some of your bleed. Be great on tom tracks as well, where you have all the bleed between the tom hits. This may be a really great solution. And again, I've used lots of gates in my day, and there's only been a couple of them that work really well. This one seems to work well, and if you play around with it, you can really dial it in. So I think this is just a wonderful plugin. Again, I'm really anxious to take a look at the other 6 that come as part of the membership subscription. Like I said, it's $149 US, but they sound really, really good. So if you don't have any SSL plugins and you want that SSL sound and you don't have a universal audio hardware rig or interface where they have the channel strip, or if you don't have the Waves channel, Waves bundle, which again is probably 10 or 12 years old, these are probably going to be modeled maybe a lot more accurately and probably have a much different sound characteristic to them than the older plugins. And in a future video, we'll compare the two different manufacturers just to see what the sound differences are, because every analog console is going to sound a little different. So they're always going to sound a little different on their own, but it's interesting to see how they kind of all stack up. So that is our first look here at the first plugin of the Solid State Logic SSL native plugin pack. This is the drum strip. I hope you liked this video. You can also demo these things on the Solid State Logic website. You can check those out, demo them, see if you like them, and then look back for future videos, and we'll take a look at some other plugins inside of this this native pack here. So again, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Again, go out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and mixingmadeeasy.net. Let me know what you thought about this video below, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.